From Goombas and goblins to child soldiers whose brains were harvested and put inside of machines. Grunts in video games are pretty important to nail. In most games, the bosses are a lot more memorable and iconic, but despite that, they only make up a fraction of gameplay. Most of the player's hours in your game are going to be spent killing the grunts, the goons, and the henchmen. And you're going to be killing a lot of them, and it's going to be very morally ambiguous. To sidestep people feeling bad, developers tend to make grunts something you don't tend to morally empathize with, such as demons from hell, zombies, Nazis, Nazi zombies. I began researching goon design online, which led me to very unsavory websites. But I did end up deciding that I wanted to do demons because demons have a lot of swag and a lot of creativity you can do with them compared to like zombies. Players still might feel bad stabbing and killing demons all the time though, so I also made them student council members. I was very inspired by kabuki masks and I wanted their faces to look a little bit like those. I also looked at some of the characters in Mob Psycho for inspiration on student uniforms so that they could wear. I wish Japan was real. They kind of ended up looking like those demon salarymen in Dragon Ball, but hopefully they are distinct enough that people do not sue me. I wanted the guy to be able to use all the same weapons the player does, so I made him a similar height. He's going to be the enemy you end up fighting for most of the game, so I really wanted him to be more versatile. I also wanted a character who could shoot projectiles, but the problem was if I gave them a gun, then the player would be able to pick up the gun after they died, and I didn't really want like too many automatic weapons or like just too many guns in general in the game. So I had to make the gun a part of their physical body, which made them look like a Plants vs. Zombies character. But if the game is ever popular enough to get any fan art of it, I hope that they don't draw like something very lecherous with this character design. To be honest, it's a pretty atrocious design. I think it's like kind of charming overall though, I don't know. I'll make up some lore another time for why you're massacring these demon student council members in the first place. But for now, I think they at least fit the role of henchmen, visually at least, very well. The AI is really simple right now. They basically just stand still until they spot you in front of them. If they don't have a weapon, then they try to go grab one, and if they do, then they attack you. At some point, I'll make them become aggro after hearing like a loud noise, like a gunshot or an explosive, like in Hotline Miami. I think they should also patrol around a little instead of just standing still waiting for the player. For grunts in a game, you really do have to pick between quantity and quality. Enemies in Serious Sam don't really like interact with the world that much. They just sort of get a certain distance away from you and attack, which is fine because there's so many types of enemies to vary the gameplay. The fun in that game is switching between the guns to deal with various enemy types. Alternatively though, there's Breath of the Wild. The moblins use almost any weapon in the game, and they have so much variation in interactions they do with the environment. Because of this though, there's actually not that many enemies in Breath of the Wild. Other Zelda games have more, but they're just like less complex. On the coding side, the girl's script just inherits from the glasses demon guy and just overrides some of the methods since she's more simple. I made the base enemy script for the glasses guy very complex and very versatile. I think any enemy in the game should be able to inherit from it, except for maybe like bosses. Also, if you saw the prototype, you probably noticed that I ported the game from Unity to Godot. It's been a very trendy thing for people to make a video about why they switched from like Unity to Unreal or like Unity to Godot. And maybe I'll make a video about that at some point, but for the most part, I just think Godot has like a lot of swag. It's very easy to use, it's very fun. That's it. It's just fun. I also like the scenes implementation a lot. I think it's a lot better than prefabs in Unity. I also decided to go with a more pixelated aesthetic for the textures for the same reason. It's just fun to make them and it's pretty easy to make something that's decent looking. All the textures for the models were made in Blender, and then all the level textures were made in Krita. Krita has like this really cool wraparound feature for the canvas that makes it really easy to make seamless textures. And also has some pretty good pixel brushes, some default pixel brushes for like dithering and stuff. So I'm using all the open source software these days. I'm off the grid. I couldn't really figure out how like animation retargeting works in Godot. No matter like which setting I pressed, it always looked really odd. I'm gonna work around this by using Mixamo rigs and then using the Blender plugin to retarget animations. The Mixamo plugin can also generate IK and FK control rigs, which is very nice for custom animations if I do make some. I'm pretty bad at animating though, so we'll see. I quickly gave up on making levels with the CSG blocks in Godot. The physics objects would just fall through them and they just kind of suck in general. Even after I switched the default physics engine from the Godot physics to Godot Jolt, it didn't really do anything. Since my levels don't have a lot of polygons, I just did what everybody else does and I installed Trench Broom. Using CSG blocks to build something is like building mega blocks with your drunk uncle, and Trench Broom is Lego. It's name brand shit. It's made for Quake maps, but there's a Godot plugin that imports it into a scene. The workflow is really easy. I can make any change I want in Trench Broom, save it, then go back to Godot, hit build, and then rebake the nav mesh. That's it. I'll probably make a model pack of various props to detail the scenes, but I don't really know what I want the themes to be for the levels yet. Trench Broom is just pretty easy to work with. If I add any textures to the texture folder, it automatically just shows up. As far as map editors go though, I do prefer Hammer, but Trench Broom gets the job done and it fits the look I want. You can also add custom entities to it if you want to do the enemy placements in Trench Broom. I didn't really bother with that because I thought it was like fine placing them in the editor. So I also rewatched the greatest action movie of all time, Police Story. Besides having some of the best stunts and choreography in any movie, I also noticed the massive amount of glass breaking and really wanted to add something similar to my game. When researching breakable items, I saw mostly like two different implementations. The first implementation was modeling a broken version of the item and just swapping out the whole one with the broken chunks right when it gets destroyed. And the second implementation was procedurally generating chunks depending on the point of impact. I'm more of a fart smeller than a smart fella, so I decided to not do the procedural glass breaking and just swap it out with the model with the pre-made chunks. Here's some glass that you can break by sliding through or throwing an item. You can also just blast through. It's pretty satisfying, but needs a couple more variations of ways to break. I also added a watermelon that you can pick up and throw. I need to record me breaking a watermelon in real life because the current sound effect is absolute butt cheeks. So the watermelon also has other uses. You can throw it at enemies to knock them down. Knocking them over makes them throw their weapon, so you can use it if you have nothing else to get a quick kill. The knockdown is pretty funny looking. I don't really want the player to be able to be knocked down though. I think it would interrupt the flow of gameplay too much. And I think it'd be very frustrating if you got like stun locked or something. I don't want to add too many more base mechanics to the player in general, I think. It'll be more interesting to explore the bounds of what I have already created and create mechanics that kind of work within those systems. I already have a bunch of ideas for things I want to test out, like a grenade, a Molotov, a gun that shoots air that knocks over enemies and pushes them around, a huge berserk sword that flings you around the map when you swing it. I want to be just like Nuts from Berserk. Some weird alien gun like in Half-Life that shoots ticks, but maybe instead of ticks it gives you like a chronic lung infection, or maybe like a trombone. All of those could just use mechanics or systems that sort of already exist. I also started thinking about how I wanted to make a tutorial for the game since I wanted to playtest as soon as possible. The tutorial in Dark Souls really rocks. All it does is place messages on the ground that can be read by the player that gives them quick explanations of actions and hotkeys. It helps with replayability a lot because on your second playthrough you can just run by them if you already know what they do. The rest of the tutorial in Dark Souls is fairly normal, just game design 101, like laying out basic enemies and positions where it's low stakes so the player can fail. I didn't want to add a hotkey specifically for opening these messages, so I just made the text appear when you're within a certain distance. I think the less context-sensitive buttons are generally better. Now if I release the game on Steam, I can add a Souls-like tag to the game and get it featured in an Iron Pineapple video. I'll become famous. It's basically just like Dark Souls. I'm really proud of the progress I made so far, but there's still a lot to do before the first playtest. The ragdolls don't really work, and shotguns sometimes kill you instead of whatever you're shooting at. I don't really have like a lot of levels or weapons yet. I think the levels are going to be shorter in this game since you can die really fast and nobody wants to replay like huge chunks. Anyways, make sure you subscribe to Bot Monster Nation and leave a like if you have a lot of swag. I still don't have a name for this game yet, but I hope you like the devlog and that you're looking forward to more epic devlogs. Yeah, thank you. Bye.